There's also something very interesting that Benjamin Cowen said about Litecoin. I'm gonna pull it up right now. So this is it. So can't believe Litecoin is at the can't believe Litecoin is at the same price as when I first entered the market in 2018. And what was the response? This is why opportunity cost is important. Yeah, and this post, right? It's a pretty interesting one in my opinion, right? Because this post, people might see it as just him dunking on Litecoin, but in my opinion, this is him kind of like suggesting that Litecoin will still have its time, but the period between when you bought and when it has the time can be so like wide apart that you might end up losing a lot in between. And that kind of like, you know, it's a very big distinction from someone who absolutely like hates Litecoin and thinks like Litecoin is shit, it's going to zero. That's not Benjamin Cowen's perspective from what I understand. And I've watched Benjamin Cowen a lot. And one of the things he says about Litecoin is he doesn't understand how to read Litecoin chart. And I don't think anybody understands how to read Litecoin chart. You can't know when to trade Litecoin, how to trade Litecoin. If you do, you're kind of lucky. It's kind of like the strangest coin in all of crypto. And I mean this in all sincerity. Like it's the strangest coin when it comes to like its chart. You can't predict it. He doesn't understand how to read it. It's so hard to read. And another thing he says is like, you know, it kind of like talks about, oh yeah, it's been bleeding against BTC. But I mean, Benjamin Cowen is a smart guy. He understands like Litecoin is a fundamentally strong asset. And beyond this, you know, fundamental strengths of Litecoin in terms of like its adoption, usage, blah, blah, blah. It's also a very structurally significant asset. This is an historical asset. This is an asset that actually has so much market history. It's a commodity. It's widely integrated. It's widely accepted. It's everywhere, right? It's in all of the available, you know, access points for liquidity. So like he understands that like when apathy gets to a certain point, the opportunity for violent reversal in Litecoin is just there. It will be there, right? And he understands this. But he also understands the fact that as an investor, and this is part of the things why a reason why like he's such a brilliant investor. Like he understands like as an investor, right, what you cannot do, oh my god, I screwed that out. What you cannot do, right, is you cannot make investment decisions where you're just doubling down on an asset over and over and over without considering the years that might get lost in between. And at the end of the day, yes, the asset performs, but what might happen is that you might end up losing a lot of like possible upsides you could have gotten from other, you know, just adjacent assets, right? For example, assets like, I don't know, think about silver, right? Silver's just had it's an incredible generational run, right? From mid-teens all the way to 120 something. That is a 10x, barely like basically like an 8x essentially that silver has done over like 2 years. It's a commodity. It's a multi-trillion-dollar asset that's kind of like pulling crypto numbers in a very short time, right? And you know, all the silver bugs are celebrating, right? They're celebrating. They understand. Yeah, it's like yeah. We're serious. The silver's just doing crazy things. But then the time between, imagine if you actually bought into silver like 2001 or 2013 or 2012 or something like that. Within that decade or so where silver basically did nothing, you essentially, you know, you missed out on a lot of upsides you would have simply gotten from kind of like investing in the stock market, right? You bought the S&P 500. There's a lot of upside. You could have probably like doubled to tripled that money in the same time period if you're kind of like calculating it with like a 10% annualized for the S&P 500. And if you consider other opportunities as well, I mean, you could have made a lot of money being long Bitcoin, right? Just trading Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin. You're getting a lot of even bigger upside. And essentially that's where the opportunity cost kind of like comes into question. Because it's not a question of whether or not these assets will perform. It's like when. It's a question of when. When will they perform? And what's the distance between when you buy and when they perform? And that's kind of like his entire thought about Litecoin. I don't think he believes or he thinks Litecoin is dead or Litecoin is bad or, you know, Litecoin is a trash asset, is irrelevant. He thinks it's been underperforming for quite a long time. And you can never really, someone like him at least, can never really make a bet on Litecoin when it's going to overperform. Because like that time, within that time period, you might end up like losing a lot. But now, conversely, right? And this is where I personally, and a lot of Litecoiners are still betting on Litecoin regardless. I think a lot of Litecoiners, in fact, do understand this opportunity cost thing. But if you want, this is one of the things about commodities, right? You cannot know when the pop-off is going to happen. And yes, if you go chase something else within that time period while you're kind of like waiting for the this asset to kind of like wake up, if you go chase something else, yes, you might catch some upside from this other thing that you're chasing. But whenever these assets starts moving, it's not gonna move in a way that is, is gonna be like, oh, perfectly aligned for you to rotate back your capital, right? It's not like everyone who's kind of like sidelined on Litecoin watching it from the side. It's not like by the time Litecoin is ready to move, they will know before the move starts, or they will know kind of like when the move starts. No, they're gonna realize late into the move that it started, and they're only gonna be able to like catch scraps from this move. And that's just the the reality of it is those that suffer the opportunity cost that would end up riding, most of the gains all the way to the top. Because like, I don't think someone like Benjamim Cowen will be, allocating into Litecoin at 140 something. Maybe 250 something, because it's more of like, smart money. But like, you can consider like 250 something, Benjamim Cowen like buying in 250 something or something, kind of like waiting for that all-time high break, blah, 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 kind of like iron out. To a diehard Litecoiner is just DCAing every single freaking dip all the way to like 50. You kind of think about it, right? From 250 to like 2,500, let's imagine that's where the cycle peak is at. That's a 10x. But for someone who bought like $50, that's a 50x. And you can kind of like look at that. Like, that's where the perspective of some Litecoiners is like, crypto, it has the exponential factor, and the opportunity cost sometimes can be worth it. Like when you understand there's an asset that can go up by orders of magnitude, it's kind of worth the wait. I mean, of course, you're not going to allocate your everything inside, but allocating a significant percentage, I don't know, 10, 15, 20%. By the way, this is not financial advice, by the way. Yeah, but like allocating 10, 15, 20% to it with the potential to like 50x, that will change your life. So like the opportunity cost is worth it. And most people will not buy Litecoin at 250. Just even most people that are like sidelined and understand that it actually has some potentials, because you're gonna see it as topping at 200 and something. It's when it has broken all-time highs and confidence is starting to get back into the market, like $600, $700. Now $1,000 starts to look like a target. $1,000, $1,400. Now the voices that are calling for $10,000 are gonna get louder. They're gonna get more dominant. Now you're gonna have people that have never talked about Litecoin for years talking about Litecoin, and that is when a lot of people are gonna buy inside. So like those sitting on the sidelines, of course, they're not gonna have to bear any of the opportunity cost. But of course, you're also not going to be able to enjoy most of the upside, especially the violent upsides.